This is a part 2 to a video where I showed how output parameters work. Click above if you haven't seen that video, because we're going to build on that code. In the first video, we made a function that would take a number of bottles and compute how many cases, 6-packs, and singles we need to buy that many bottles. Now, suppose we wanted to build a function that we could call repeatedly that would add sets of bottles to our order. Here's how I'd like to use that. I'd start with initializing all of my counts to 0. Then I'd pass pointers to them like we did before. However, this time I want add to order to add the new number of cases, bottles, and singles to the amount we already have. That way, I could call it multiple times and get running totals. So I want the last 3 parameters to carry values in and give values back. That makes them input-output parameters. Instead of my usual take pretty pictures and make pretty slides, let's watch how I would use this actually in Sea Lion. So here is the main that I talked about a second ago. And here is my add to order method that I am going to use to make that work. And we're going to follow how that works. So I've put a breakpoint right at the beginning of it. I'm going to run it in the debugger. And you can see here I have my bottles, cases, 6-packs, and singles are pointers. They're pointers down to these variables that have zeros in them. And if I look at the mains stack frame, there are the zeros in our variables. Now, this assignment statement is going to first chase cases, because remember, cases is a pointer to an integer, so we have to dereference it with that asterisk to get the integer that it points at. So it's going to chase cases and get a 0. And then it's going to calculate bottles divided by 24. Since bottles is 56, bottles divided by 24 is going to be 2. So 0 plus 2 is 2. And then it's going to store that back at the place cases points at. So it's going to store it at the place cases points at, which is cases, num cases in main. So if I do step over, cases became 2, and num cases is 2. And it will do that for the other values that we have in here as well. So if I say continue, this will be the second call on add to order. So you can see bottles is the 42 that is here. And if I click on main, it tells me that I'm sitting on this line that it has highlighted here. So this time, when I do this assignment statement, I would read it. The thing cases points at gets the value the thing cases points at plus bottles divided by 24. This time, the thing cases points at is a 2, and bottles divided by 24 is 1, because bottles is 42. 2 plus 1 is 3, and that will store it back in the position that cases points at. And if I step over, we'll see it becomes 3, and main becomes 3. So, when we see that a parameter is a pointer, that means it can be an output parameter, which means we're going to change the value that it points at. It can also be an input parameter, meaning that we're going to use the value that it points at. When we want to use the value that it points at, we need the dereference operator to go get the thing that it points at. And when we want to store into the thing that it points at, we also have to use the dereference operator to get the position that it's pointing at. So that's how input-output parameters work in C.